Good evening, hello everybody, and welcome to Forever Rugby on Forever Sports. It is Wednesday night. We are a couple of days away before the Springboks take to the field once again against Australia with revenge on their mind after going down to Australia last weekend. A bit of a disaster result, if we're going to be very honest. But a chance for redemption this weekend. And as Jacques Nienaber said, it's basically a quarterfinal, semi-final, and final in order to actually go and win the Rugby Championship because of losing this match with New Zealand thrashing Argentina. The only sort of positive is we now know what we have to do. There can be no sort of waiting for asking for other teams to do favors, stuff like that. Our fate is in our hands. And if there's literally one thing that we have learned about this current box side, is that put them in a corner and they'll come out fighting. And when they know, when they're up against it, when they've got a clear mandate in terms of they just cannot sort of buckle and they cannot slip up, that's actually tended to be when they've really delivered. We look at the Lions series, we look at the World Cup, and they've played their best rugby when they have been up against it. So we've got a massive, massive game on Saturday, and we've picked our best side available for it. So we have stuck with our main sort of guns. We haven't sort of rotated as some of us thought that they might have. We sort of spoke about it in quite a lot of depth last night in terms of whether Jacques Nienaber would rotate his squad. Will we see new players, stuff like that? We will not. We'll have a look at the side, stuff like that. And we'll just sort of gauge people's opinions, sort of see, do you agree? Do you think they should have rotated, stuff like that? I'm going to create a poll, and the poll is going to be, are you happy with this side for the weekend? Right, so there is the poll in the comments. Let me know where you're watching from. Let me know how your week's going. We're halfway through. It's hump day anyways. Only 2 days left of the week. And on Saturday morning, we'll be live for Springbok Rugby as well as New Zealand versus Australia. We might even have a new face for New Zealand versus Australia. We'll have to wait and see. We will also be live tomorrow night. We're going to be having a panel show, so I will not just be me. I'm going to be joined tomorrow by Lekanyo, by one new presenter and potentially a second new presenter. We'll try and confirm that lineup tomorrow. But regardless, we will be live with a bit of a panel show. And also some cool news. Tomorrow morning, we're going to be releasing, over the next couple of days, we're going to be releasing press conferences from the various United Rugby Championship teams. So I was actually at a press conference for about an hour and a half today with players from Ulster, from Munster, from Leinster, and from Connacht. We chatted Gary Ringrose, sort of gave us a bit of insight into being subbed from the Lions and sort of what he's looking forward to doing in the coming competition. Tomorrow, we're going to hear from the likes of Rhys Webb. Josh Turnbull, I think, is on the list as well. We're going to be hearing from the Welsh sides tomorrow. We're going to be hearing from the Italian and South African players in sort of next week or two. In the next week, I suppose, before next week Friday. So we've got a lot of United Rugby Championship content, which will be hitting your screens. That'll also kick off tomorrow with a bunch of different press conferences. So I mean, for some of the most intensive and in-depth coverage of the URC, make sure you subscribe right now because we will be doing a lot of stuff on the URC. It's 10 matches a weekend, basically. 8 matches a weekend, 10 with the Rugby Championship. We've got a stacked rugby schedule coming up. Just get ready, prepare yourself, stock up the brandy. But yeah, so we've got Albie in the comments saying we know how to play do or die rugby. We have to win the next 2 games, and we know how to. I agree. Russell Goose says what actually happened with RK Snyman. Details are a little bit sketchy in terms of what the sort of personal incident is. It looks like he'll hopefully be in action for Munster. I know that they did sort of recall him, and that he is currently training, stuff like that, and they're hopeful that he will be sort of sorted and he'll be back and ready. Whether that suddenly means they'll play for Munster or whether he'll sort of come back to the Springboks for the India tour, I'm not quite sure what the situation will be. I suppose at the end of the day, he'll be there already, in terms of having to travel and stuff like that. So that won't be much of an issue there. But there has been no sort of official word on exactly what his sort of situation is. The only reason, he didn't go to Australia because of personal reasons. So it wasn't supposed to be an injury or physical reason that was ruling him out. It was apparently personal issues, whatever those may be. Obviously, I really wanted the Prayer brother to be in the squad instead of Ori. That does seem to be the general sort of consensus. Not a lot of people are happy with that Marvin Ori call. I think the one thing you get with Marvin Ori is consistency and very good line-out work. And I think that is probably what gets him above the other two, is the fact that we've lost our line-out general in Lua Diaga, who's so good line-out time. Marvin Orie is a line specialist. That's what he does. And he's a solid play. I mean, I've never been the biggest Marvin Orie fan, even when he was at the Lions. I think that he always had a bit of an issue with his discipline, which would let him down from time to time. But he's a safe player. He makes his tackles, he'll carry it up, he'll win his line out. So, there's a decent player in there. He's just not blockbuster at the end of the day. He's not necessarily going to run over someone and throw a weird offload. He doesn't quite have the engine that a Franco Master does, but he's a very solid player. He's a very safe player. And I think that safety is probably what gets him into that squad in terms of just being able to come and do the job given to him and do it pretty well. He says, when is Johan Krabala and Grant Williams getting a chance to play for the Springboks? They won't play this rugby championship. I can promise you that now. They were basically taken for the experience, to be honest. I don't think they were ever really in contention to play. It was more about building depth, about being part of the system. But if there's a hooker injury, Joseph Draby comes straight in. If there's a scrum off injury, Kobus Reynolds comes straight in. We're not going to see, unless there are lots of injuries, we're not going to see Grant Williams. We're not going to see Jan Krabala. I'll be very surprised if we see a Dupree brother at this rate, to be honest. Whether you agree with that or not, I don't know, 50-50. We haven't really seen something like Jesse Creel and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, I think that's probably my only sort of gripe is that if there was ever a time to rotate this week, it was going to be this weekend. This weekend was the best time to rotate and be able to bring some players in, which we haven't done, which is fine if you want to try and build momentum. I just worry about injuries and whether this team can go 4 tests in a row and still be able to play, produce the goods every week. They didn't really produce the goods last week, I suppose. So now you only have to produce the goods for 3 more matches. Heinz says ideal time to rotate is now. Too bad not done. New Zealand the real challenge, and then not time to rotate from settled players. Well, that's the thing. We will not rotate at all. That's what we've pretty much committed to doing. The fact that we have named the same side means we will see this side next week. We will see this side the week after, unless there are injuries or unless there's a specific tactical change you want to make for the All Blacks. But I'll be very surprised if we do that. We're not going to suddenly see Abdullah Fassi at fullback against the All Blacks because of a tactical reason. It's far too risky to do that kind of thing. So we won't see that. So I don't think we will see much rotation unless there are injuries or players who are fit or players who are really, really struggling. But it is a bit of a worry. I mean, if you've got players who are struggling, for example, and they continue to struggle now this weekend, and they play against New Zealand, and they still struggle against New Zealand, then there will sort of be fingers pointed to the Bok management saying, but you knew that they weren't playing well. You knew that there were issues there. So why didn't you rotate them? So I look, at the end of the day, you can never win as a Bok management. Because some people would have been annoyed if they had rotated. Some people would have are annoyed that they didn't rotate. So you have to make the big calls, don't you? That's what puts them in the job, but not us. I would have liked to have seen a bit of rotation. I think there are certain players who have played a lot of rugby and they could have done it with a bit of a break. But each their own, I suppose. Each to their own. F&TSG says, I'm happy with the team as you can't have one bad performance be like scrap game plan and get rid of players who have been performing very well. We have to trust the coaches and Rusty and Jacques. Look, I don't think you'd scrap the game plan, but in terms of performances, I wouldn't say it was one bad game. I don't think we played particularly well against Argentina in that second test. And the only problem with that is that I thought we did play very well the week before with some of the rotated players. So there are certain players who are banging on the door saying, listen, whenever you've given me a chance, I've done the goods. I've done the business. When am I going to be backed in the sort of the bigger games? And there are players who have maybe struggled a couple of times who still aren't necessarily putting in the biggest of games. I mean, I don't think we've really seen the best of Stephen Kitsoff this year, to be perfectly honest. He was fantastic for the Stormers, but I don't think we've seen the best of Stephen Kitsoff so far in a Bok jersey. We've seen decent performances, but nothing too stand out. Francois Herbert's had a decent Lions tour, hasn't had a great rugby championship so far. So I think there are players who Marcus Oliver Pimpy, I think, in the rugby championship has been a little bit quiet so far. So there are players who I think that could have been rotated. Lots of people calling for Willie Leroux. I think the biggest problem with Willie Leroux is we don't have another fullback. We haven't. You're not gonna now try and Cheslin Colby at fullback against New Zealand. You're not going to suddenly try Abdullah Fassi at fullback against New Zealand. So the time to try that was that Argentina first test. And we didn't. So I think end of the year tour will be the time where I'm hoping we will start to rotate and we will start trying to bring in a bit of depth because we need to. You have to establish depth. Otherwise, you'll never be ready for the next World Cup. Which for me, as soon as the series, in fact, borderline now, my next big thing is the World Cup. You plan for the next World Cup. I don't care if we lose the next 3 rugby championships. You win the World Cup, you'd rather do that, to be perfectly honest. Albie says, Bar Depriya brother, Depriya brother gives the grunt. We're missing from Peter Steph. Toy Ori offers nothing other than lineouts. Well, look, we did score 3 more tries. So having someone which is guaranteed to win in your line, I suppose, is part of the thinking. If we are going to target the set piece, because they're talking about the fact that set piece, they want to get better at set pieces. We are such a set piece driven side. So scrums have to be very good. Our liners have to operate very well. And that's where we sort of get out the best out of the team. So I think that's probably where it comes in. That's why Bongi Manambi's always had such a big role in the Springboks from sort of that early stage of the World Cup, because he is a set piece. He's very solid come set piece time. Marvin will be very solid come the line-out time. So I mean, I'm assuming that. Look, I'm not saying I agree with that. I'm just saying that that's probably the thinking. I'd imagine in terms of picking Marvin Ori ahead of a Depriya brother. Kevin says, I definitely agree. Springboks are hurting this coming weekend. We win. Leandro Baez says, I feel like in terms of winning this weekend, we chose the right side. Australia did not beat us. We lost. I also think Pollard and Willems have justified the selection with their on-field ability. They just have to be able to kick better, because we can't have that kicking performance again. We really can't. Hooper says, I'm relieved they're back Pollard again. He'll find his form. Well, I hope so. Because we need him. And I'm saying, we do need these players to play well. We do need our base players playing at the top of their ability. The issue comes when they're not. How long do you continue to back them? If Pollard kicks badly again this weekend, you then go into the New Zealand game thinking, shit, we can't afford him to miss 8 to 10 points against New Zealand. You can imagine that happens when you lose against New Zealand. That it'll be sacrilege if that kind of thing happens. So he does need to find his form. But the trade-off is that you then haven't backed somebody else. So that if he doesn't play well, you can't really then go, we're now going to try this guy in the next game. So it's always that sort of balance stuff like that. So maybe that was a reason to maybe go with a 5-3 split to try and say, right, well, we're going to give you 60 minutes. We're going to give another flower of 20 minutes, so at least they're ready if they need to be called upon. Obviously, I think we'll see a lot of rotation for the end of year tour. I agree. Tian says, you think Dwayne will have a bigger impact this game? I do think he'll be better. I think it was always going to be a quiet-ish game for Dwayne Vermeulen, especially by his standards. Coming back from not having played since, June, I think. So he's missed 2 months of rugby, and he's going to come back straight into the test match arena. There's always going to be a bit of a quiet performance, I felt, from him. So I think that we will see a better performance from him this weekend. Hopefully he can put in a longer shift and build that match fitness, and hopefully be okay for the All Blacks. Contender says, was hoping for change. His 11 would have been Nche, Mbanambi, Malherbe, Etzebeth, Mostert, Khaleesi, Vermeulen, Visa, de Klerk, Yankees, Derendi, Mapimpi, Colby, LaRue. So the changes there you would have made was Ox starting instead of Beyond 23, Mostert back to lock, Vermeulen and Visa. I think at the end of the day, Franco Mostert's going to play number 7 against the All Blacks. And as a result, let's play him as much as we can in the number 7 jersey, so he's ready when it comes to that. Because I think he will play. He will play as the number 7 for the All Blacks. I think we kind of know this. Colby is still injured. Jacques Ninabas saying that he hopes that he will be available for the All Blacks. He's currently doing his return to training protocols, and then he has to do his return to play protocols. He has been running and doing light sort of training, no sort of content stuff like that. So, at this stage, he hasn't been ruled out. He is still, I think, on the cards to face New Zealand. Whether he will, well, I suppose we'll have to wait and see. His bench will be Marks, Inyakani, Koch, Ori, Smith, Reinach, Bornestage, Pollard, Fassi, or Creel. Kevin says, what happened to Earl Rose? Didn't play for Lions back in the days. Last time I saw Earl Rose, didn't he steal something at a golf club? Pretty sure there was something about him being involved in something like that. He's 37 these days. I'm sure there was something along those lines. He was involved in some weird sort of story. Yeah, it was. Former Springbok Pearson called up Diana himself over the police for stealing golf clubs in Stellenbosch. I mean, it's just so weird. Yeah, an Avi Rugby supporter said he believes nicked his 7,000 Rand golf club. Yeah, bizarre story, that one. But Who is a promising kicker for the future? Alton is 31. Cade Voliter. We've seen so little of Cade Voliter. I'll be very hesitant to say much about him. Future fly halves are your Jordan Hendrickses, who's starting to play a bit more. Look, I mean, if Chris Smith plays the way he does at the Bulls, you never know what he might do. But Cade Voliter obviously is one for the future. You've got a couple of players coming through, something like an FC Duplessis at the Bulls, who's playing more as an outside back, but supposed to be very talented. So hopefully in the next couple of years, we'll start seeing them come through. I think Curran Bosch is still on the radar, but I'm not sure how much longer he'll continue to sort of be in and around the fringes of Springbok rugby. Hopefully we'll see Fassi at 15 or interview at tour. Reinach is better than Herschel, says Louis. Niva says, the thing is, people don't realize that Marvin has to play as he's only one of two people who know how to run a line out. Him and Franco need to run a line out and make the calls. Dupree can't do that. That's why I was saying, that he's a line out specialist. And given the fact that we are so set piece driven, I think it's a very it's vital, isn't it? If you're going to score 3 more tries, we need to be able to make sure we're going to hit those lineouts. We need someone that's going to be able to compete with the lineouts. And I think Marvin Orie is a very, very good lineout general. Buddha says, Wallabies are very mobile pack. I think we should have gone with Van Staden on flank and Mostert instead of Orie and Locke. Albie says, Vermeulen looked tired after like 10 minutes in the game last week. He's really not match fit. I would have had him come off the bench, to be honest. I think it's less risky if you do start him, because at the end of the day, if he is heaving after 40 minutes, you can pull him off. Whereas you put him on at 60 minutes and he's heaving after 20 minutes, you've still got 10 minutes where you're saying, right, well, we can't take him off. So I think that's probably usually the thinking when they do start players coming back from injury. Burrard says, if you're going to stick to the kicking game again and lose again, it tells you that they need to change the game plan. You can't kick to a team that plays a running game. You just give the ball to them to run. Look, well, if we had kicked better for polls, we would have used the kicking game and won last weekend. So it's always difficult, isn't it? Obviously, I think we'd all like to keep the ball in hand, but yeah, I mean, I suppose it's the kicking game is not necessarily a bad tactic. It's how you kick. It's how competitive you are. If you're putting up and unders in and you're making it very competitive, it's those aimless kicks down the middle of the park which are an issue. But if you're tactically kicking and putting them on the back foot and forcing them to kick, it's about how you execute it at the end of the day. If you're going to sort of just chip it into the middle of nowhere and say to the All Blacks, have a counter at us or all the Wallabies, then that's not great. But if you are putting in up and unders which are competitive and you are chasing hard and you are winning possession back, then it can become a very, very dangerous weapon in your arsenal if you get it right. It's all about getting right. It's about execution. Albie says, I don't mind Colby being out. And of course, he is just as capable. Wing is the last area we need to worry about. I tend to agree. Look, I think obviously having Colby back is fantastic. Busby, of course, is a brilliant player. Hopefully he gets a bit more chance to weekend with ball in hand. 34 DJ Chris says, we can't always just prepare for New Zealand and be mentally ready for that game. Every game is important. What is the next game plan if the other team matches our strength? Is there a plan B? Well, I suppose I think the biggest problem is we haven't really had to use much of a plan B because we lost the Lions game and we came back and won the 2 after that. We beat Argentina twice. So we did lose to Australia, but I don't think the game plan was much of an issue. So maybe we do have a plan B, maybe we don't. I mean, does New Zealand have a plan B, for example, if we're being brutally honest? How much do we see New Zealand if they're dropping the ball and stuff like that? They don't all of a sudden become this blooming, really physical, keep it tight, set piece team. I think we do we talk about, I mean, Australia didn't have a plan B. When they were being beaten by New Zealand, you didn't see them tweak their game in the middle, their tactics in the middle of the game to try and sort of stop the flow. They continue to get pumped by New Zealand. So we talk about us having a plan B. I mean, do other sides have plan B? I don't think it's that easy to always sort of be able to sort of change your tactics. If you've got different personnel, then there can be a plan B. For example, if you have a Herschel Yankees, Alton Yankees, and the Damien Phillips are coming off the bench, that can be a plan B because you've got the personnel. But I don't think it's very easy to tell Pollard 60 minutes right, and then you just start kicking and all of a sudden become Finn Russell. So it's an interesting thing there as well. And your forwards as well. If your plan B has to come from your bench, because you can't suddenly tell a big mobile pack that you need to suddenly become Sonny Bill Williams. But if you can, and I think we can to a certain degree, I think if you went with like a Kwagga Smith, Marco Verstappen, or Jasper Wiese off the bench, Alton Yankees, Herschel Yankees, Damien Phillips, and you just inject a lot of pace, you suddenly can maybe play a bit more of an open game, a bit more of a running game, a bit more sort of throwing the ball around. But it's very difficult just to sell Damien Delendi that he's now going to suddenly have to produce this unbelievably good offload game to get everybody else in the game. So a lot of it comes down to personnel. Contender says Apollo plays with 2 Ks and a Mornay staying in France, staying for 23. Remember the test in 2009, Mornay scored all the points in their 31-19 win versus New Zealand, and France beat helping us for a 32-29 win versus New Zealand. How about Tim Sweel? Tim Sweel's overshadowed by Willems. I wouldn't say it was overshadowed. I think Tim Sweel's had his days, but I think the problem is with Tim Sweel is that he blows hot and cold. So we saw some fantastic performances from Tim Sweel during the Currie Cup. We also saw that game, I think it was against the Bulls, where he was put under a lot of pressure and he really didn't cope very well. Is Lord injured? He's concussed, so that's the story there. So there'll be a bit of touch and go in terms of whether he'll be available for next weekend. It's all about whether he can overcome those protocols. There are some very, very strict protocols about concussion and stuff like that. So, we'll have to wait and see on that one. It's boring rugby. It is boring rugby, but if boring rugby wins, then boring rugby wins. Let's not. No, but you see, I disagree. When you say New Zealand don't need a game plan, they're running rugby and skills is enough because they lost to us. They didn't win the World Cup. So was it enough? Yeah, cool. It's looking good now, but they didn't change things against England. They couldn't flip the switch, and they did lose, and they didn't win the World Cup. They didn't win the last rugby championship. They didn't beat Argentina last year. So they're a beatable side. And I disagree that just because you play nice rugby doesn't mean you don't need a plan B, because if it's not working, that's what the idea of a plan B is. The only reason we apparently need a plan B is because we don't like plan A. I think that's the biggest thing. If our plan A was to play a really open, attractive brand of rugby where we throw the ball around, nobody will be sitting there talking about a plan B. No one. I genuinely don't. I think people will be like, oh, well, we can see what we're trying to build. It's just not coming off. Because that's what people are saying about Australia. Nobody's telling Australia that they need to have a plan B. Nobody's talking about Australia need to play to their strengths. Everyone's talking about, well, they're trying to build something here, which I think they are. But I think that the conversation about plans only sort of comes around when they don't like what's not working. Can Eddie Foucher possibly be on the fringes? If he forces himself into that Lions side and has a storming URC, why not? Why not? He's 24 years old. He's got plenty of time ahead of him. LB said Clark had a poor kicking game last week. All the kicks were basically too long. That was another poor part of the game. Well, what I don't think helped was the fact that our chases were blocked very, very intelligently and very deliberately by Australia. So it was a very interesting tactic to see them do that, where they did block our kickers, so we couldn't really chase the ball. So I think some of them were a bit long, but it's also difficult to really know exactly how bad they were because we couldn't get our chases there. We couldn't get to the ball, and the kickers only as good as their chase. Made the Dixie, I would also love to see Andre Estesen back. Pollard will stay. Pollard is inside centre. Alton Flyhalf that don't. Nobody can rival him. Talking about Pollard. New Zealand game is running rugby. They back themselves. Yeah, but as I said, it hasn't always worked. We do have a plan B. Pollard cost us. He made us lose the game. Just a reason. Pollard will be out 10 for a long time to come. He will have an off day with the boot. Otherwise, he can be consistently good. Pressure says Matfield was very harsh on Phillips. Post match day was a shock of a kick, but a definitive try save tackle. Yeah, look, I mean, I really, really did not enjoy that comment from Victor Matfield. I think it was unfounded. I think it was unjust, and I think it was naive, if we're being brutally honest. To come out and say to a World Cup winner, I don't think he's a great rugby player on national TV is poor taste, if you ask me. Yes, he probably should have made that tackle, and he had a bit of an off day against Argentina. But every single time he's come off the bench, apart from that, he's played really well this year for the Boks. At inside centre, everybody's been buzzing with the idea of him playing inside centre because he did look so good. He did make a try-saving tackle on the weekend, a really, really intelligent piece of play that sort of showed his pedigree. So to come out after that and say, I don't think he's a great rugby player, for a 23-year-old who has been pretty much stuffed around. I'll be brutally honest. I think the reason that Damien Willemse hasn't played at a higher level is because his utility is actually counting against him. We've seen the story. It happened to Johan Goosen. It happened to Pat Lamb. We've seen players who've been shifted around so much they don't get to settle and be able to develop. So I'm hoping that when Damien Willemse returns to the Stormers for the remainder of the URC, that he does sort of settle into a position and we can see more of him. He's got the talent. He's got physicality as well. He's a big boy. He's 91 kg, 1.83. He's not small. He's got all the skills. I've always said I don't see him as a fly half. I don't think it plays to his skill set. But to come out and say he's a bad rugby player, I disagree with vehemently. Burris says we need France on 12 as backup kicker. We had nobody back on this weekend. Venice can't kick poles. Yankees choked while being able to play for a whole year. I don't know what you're on about, to be honest. Carly says, disclaimer, my dad told me Faf will kick poles if Gaza comes on. Well, assuming he's still on, I suppose. Thoughts on Lions, URC squad and Stormers transfers. Yeah, we're going to talk about the Stormers transfers. My thoughts on the Lions URC squad is that we need a lot more star quality if we really want to compete. And I think that we've brought in some reasonable players, but nothing which is going to make an Ulster or Munster sit up and go, sure, but we need to really watch that player. They won't even know any of the players that we signed, which I suppose can be a good thing to many degree. But I think that, I think we need more, big signings. But we'll talk about the Storm signings as well as soon as I've gone through the box squad. Wish Morné Steyn could be there instead of Willemse. I don't really see the point, to be honest. Winning over for how long? A game plan is too predictable. Won't be effective to too long. Well, you see, I can't stand that. I cannot stand that we've just won 3 trophies in a row, and now it's how long can it be? Springbok rugby has not changed. When Jake White won the World Cup, we weren't playing a completely different style of rugby to what we are playing now. Springbok rugby has always been about physicality. It's always been about dominating pack, very very structured play. We've never been a side which Peter de Villiers trying to make us a bit more like that, but we've never been a side that's played scintillating offload rugby, offload in the tackle and stuff like that. So, and we've won 3 World Cups, we've won 2 back-to-back Lions series, we've won the rugby championship. So I think to say that it won't work, why not? Why can't it just continue to work? We can go back to trying to play how we did as the Kutsia thing. That was slightly different. It didn't work. So let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater after we lose to Australia on the back of just beating the British and Irish Lions, and a very good British and Irish Lions, might I add. Katina says with Visa playing quite well, likes of Noche and Kasim out of contention. I think Kasim, for whatever reason, doesn't seem to be on the radar. I think Noche is still on the radar if he does come back and play well. FNTSG says, well, our second team, we have plan B attacking, running. First team, we have boring rugby and kicking. I like the boring rugby. It wins us more matches than when we tried attacking rugby. Remember, 57-0. Exactly. Heinrich says, with the kicking game, it's an advantage to have tall wingers. When they have blocked our chases, it was legal. I have proof. Yeah, well, I'm interested to see what's going to happen with that now. We need Ches and Colby. Interesting that not too many have noted how slow we were to the breakdown. That was a huge part of the game. Agree. Well, we didn't lose too much of the breakdown. I don't think we were rapid, but we also didn't. You're talking about our breakdowns or their breakdowns. We were isolated a couple of times, so I do know what you're saying. I think it was an off day in many respects. So we can put it down as an off day, but it's about fixing it. So if you have that off day, and then this weekend you come and you have a stormy game and you fix it, then we can go cool. It's where that becomes a bit of a repetition that then becomes a bit of a worry. When New Zealand beat Argentina, you sort of go, oh, there we go. But then they come back and play, and you're like, okay, cool, that's fine. Johnny says he's back in Polo to be 100%. The kicking tee this weekend. I'm not going to continue talking about the game plan. We've had this chat. We just need more wingers like Colby, offensively and defensively sound, rugby IQ to match the natural and physical talent. Yeah, look, it's not easy to just say that we need more wingers like the best player in the world at the moment. Obviously, we'd love it, but you're always going to have to sacrifice. Not everyone's going to be a Ches and Colby, unfortunately. Contender says, let's all pray for Australia to fling long passes for us to intercept and score. Bring back Matumo and Lesio for long flings for us to catch. Colin's talking about the fact that they were blocked. Phillips approved last game. He does not belong. Well, he tried saving tackles, so I genuinely don't know what you're on about. We didn't lose the game because he missed 2 points. All Blacks don't have off days, no matter how young their squad is. Well, they do. They do. I mean, they don't always put on a masterclass performance. Willemse was great, says Des Organ. Alton's unlucky, but he's not a Pollard. He won us the World Cup. We're still having the same blooming conversation. Collie says, Stephen, can I send you a clip on Instagram with the wrong ref decision? Sure. You didn't get it right, by the way. So last night, Collie Nino, I thought I was coming here for 100 rand super chat, but he did call the two changes to the squad. So I must organize you a discount code for the store. I'll try and sort that out in the next couple of days and send you a discount code, or we'll try and work out something along those lines. Can Stormers afford these signings? Well, if we're talking about the two they made today, then I think they can. Right, chaps are just having a bit of a go chat in the comments. You guys enjoy that. Johnny Blair says, I'm from New Zealand. I'm backing SA teams in the URC. Let's go SA teams. I'm glad. Peter Villas is mayor candidate. Yeah, I saw that. It's a bit of a weird thing, isn't it? Kevin says, why didn't Lions bring bigger names? Seem like bringing local players to going big. I think the cash is the answer there. But yeah. He didn't say Villips is bad. He said he's got great. I'm not sure if he's great, which I tend to agree with, but he's only 23 and we're trying to build depth here. Well, I think he said, I quote, I'm not sure he's a great rugby player, which then, and I think to be, yeah, I get what you're saying. Well, I'm not sure if he's a bit, but I think it's a bit of a scapegoat to say I'm not sure. I just think it was wrong to sort of fixate on one kick to talk about someone's ability, who also they put in a try-saving tackle, which wasn't mentioned. I mean, he had 12 minutes or 15 minutes of the game. I don't think he ever got the ball in the 10 channel because we played everything off 9. Had one kick for poles, didn't get it. Had one try-saving tackle, which was a really good piece of play. And based on that, to then say I'm not sure he's a great rugby player, I just think it's a bit unnecessary. Jake got smacked by Wallabies just before Rugby World Cup. Yeah, it happened. People, you lose some, you win some at the end of the day. I think that's also something that we just not realized, that we will lose matches. It's inevitable. New Zealand lose matches. We've beaten New Zealand a couple of times in the last couple of years. Argentina beat New Zealand in the last couple of years. Australia beat New Zealand last year. England beat New Zealand in the World Cup. You will lose rugby matches. It is part of the game. It is part of sport. But we can't afford to have a meltdown every single time we do. It's all about how you respond. So we had our days. We spoke about the fact that this was wrong. This was wrong. We know what we need to change. If we don't change on Saturday, cool, we can have a moan about it. But if we come in and Pollard has a storming game, we can say, cool, you sorted yourself out. We were right to say that we had our doubts because you gave us reason to doubt us. But if you've got the pedigree to come back and respond, then credit to you. It doesn't mean you're immune to criticism. Beauden Barrett is a 2-time World Rugby Player of the Year and sometimes doesn't get into the starting 15. In fact, a lot of the time doesn't get into the starting 15 at the All Blacks because they're not afraid to pick on form. So I don't think saying that somebody maybe should spend time on the bench, shouldn't play, doesn't mean you don't like the player, doesn't mean you don't back them. It just means that we've got a big squad and sometimes other players must play. Sometimes we get things wrong. Sometimes you will lose games. It happens. So, but that doesn't mean we need to have a freak out and say that every rugby player is rubbish, that if our tactics are hopeless, people are calling for the coaching staff and saying that they got it all wrong. I think we overreact a little bit. I don't think it's an overreaction to say that we would have liked to have seen Pollard given a rest. Nobody's been saying Pollard needs to be excluded from the squad. Nobody is saying Andre Pollard should not start against the All Blacks. The question was, given the fact that he has struggled, should he maybe be rotated, give somebody else a chance in case he can't find form, or so that somebody else is ready to step in if need be? I think even people that didn't want him to play this weekend, I think everybody probably agree that we want to see somebody else play this weekend and Pollard starts back in for the All Blacks game. I don't think anyone was. I mean, I don't think we need to only have knee-jerk reactions about much. Louis says, I wanted to see new Springbok players playing a North type of rugby and weird them out. Would be interesting. Springbok rugby is a reflection of the SA culture. I love it so much. We make tweaks of the game every now and then, but the plan stays the same. Hooper was a menace at the breakdown over the weekend, but not necessarily in turns, but in slowing the ball. Yeah, look, I think a lot of times, he was a bit sort of Richie McCaw-esque in terms of just edging that line of where, staying on his feet and stuff like that. But you need someone to always sort of be pushing, towing that line. And that's why your fetchers always concede penalties. So someone will say, Kwaka Smith gives away a lot of penalties. Malcolm Staden will give away a lot of penalties. Heinrich Rousseau gave away a lot of penalties. He did win a lot as well, but those people who push the lines are always going to concede a lot of penalties. Des says that we did not jump in contest as usual. Pollard will be excellent at the kicking tee this week after getting it tuned up from Nina Bar. Wrong spelling. Yeah, it is wrong. It's we've got when Carlo comments, then he's got then you can check the spelling there. Box just gift New Zealand the championship this weekend. Now we need to beat them at both games. Hey, you want to beat the best, you got to beat the best. You got to be the best, you got to beat the best. And of course, he looks surprisingly shaky in defense. Yeah, I think it's a bit of rust. Hopefully, you'll jump back this weekend. I think your YouTube channel is destined to be the biggest in SA. You're doing a major job, and I'm keen to see this grow. More power. Thank you. Appreciate that. We're very new here. And still sort of finding our way in where we sort of lie. But yeah, it's been a lot of fun. So thank you. I really appreciate that. We got stressed after playing fast rugby that Aussies play. Let's play our boring rugby for the first second of the game. We forced it on Australia and put them to bed. Let's keep calm and play rugby. Execution. I agree, says GVR and Royan. Don't say New Zealand lost to England. This still makes me very sad and I want to cry. You win some, you lose some, or you draw and eat some of them together. Yeah, look, it's you're not always going to have a great day, are you? Correct. Hooper was a mess. The breakdown over the weekend, not necessarily in turnovers, but slowing the ball. Yeah. What's the news on Russia and World Rugby? I haven't heard much actually on what's actually happening with the when the hearing will take place. In fact, it's been very silent. So hopefully we'll get some more info on that in the next sort of week or two. I mean, it's supposed to be now, so I'm very confused with what's happening. Off to work, lads. Cheers, Steve. Appreciate your streams, mate. Legend. Thank you very much, Johnny Blaze. Appreciate you for coming and hanging out. Box supporters are fickle. They really are. GVR from Warren says Willemse isn't as good as West Forest, makes us believe Fassi has a better fullback and Hussen is a better fly half. Well, I would like to see David Willemse play more at inside centre, to be honest. I think that's where I've been calling it for a long time. If you've been following the channel, you'll know that I want to see him in. We're back. Sorry, I don't know actually what's going on here. I seem to have a couple of connectivity issues. Are we still going here? Are we okay? I don't know, actually. Please let me know if we are okay, if we are still going, because it all seems to have paused on my side. Yeah, I think we seem to be all right. Cheapers, my internet is very slow. I don't know what's going on there, but we'll continue. If we go down again, we might have to call it off a bit early. But where were we? Quacker's a machine. He works so hard. I'm a big Quacker fan. I think that if you don't like him, I think a lot of it comes not appreciating what his role is. But we lost our rugby championship trophy because there's no way we're going to beat All Blacks 2 with bonus points. Look, I mean, it's not out the realms of possibility. It's unlikely, but that's what we have to do. That's what we have to do sometimes, you know. Damien is better than Hussen. Hussen is old. He's not that old, but I think they're very different players. Hooper says it's good the Box lost. Perhaps a nice wake-up call before facing the All Blacks. Keep in mind there's still only our 6th test since 2019. There's bound to be a few losses. We lost our first game at Rugby World Cup. It was our 7th test. 7th test, not our 6th, but yes. But I mean, even so, because we had the Georgia test as well. Georgia, 3 Lions, 2 Argentina, then this. So yeah, it was our 7th test. So as I said, and I also think that we actually forget how new this group is. This group has not been playing for a long time together. When Rassie Rasmussen and Jacques Nienaber came in, they're together for like 18 months before the World Cup, if that really. It's still a very new group. And that's what Spirit Corsi said. He said, we're still learning how to be world champions. And I think that was a very, very good I think it was a very good sort of. I really enjoy talking about the fact that we are still learning, that we are very much in the infancy of where we are as a team, and I think that this sort of group of players will take us to the next World Cup, and then we'll start seeing changes. But a 4-year cycle, we're only halfway through, and we're halfway through it, but didn't get a 2020. So yeah, it's still very much putting everything together. Since the link's pretty big, but yeah, I'll check it out after that. Hooper, I agree, not enough time since 2019 to experiment. Colby can play 10. Yeah, I wouldn't play Colby at 10. Kevin, I agree. I like the live stream. So amazing team. Thank you. Thank you guys for all jumping back on. Yeah, it looks like we are all good. Tree inside center would be spots he can play. We don't have a wealth of those. Yeah, I think it's there's a captain on your stoop. Yeah, blooming. Yeah, it seems to be all right now. Hopefully, I can stream on Netflix later. Ches and Colby at 10 would be my wildest dream come true. But let's be honest, we don't want Ches and Colby at 10. The Springboks will not have that type of player at 10. You know, we don't want Finn Russell at 10. We don't want Richie Mwanga at 10. We want Owen Farrell at 10. We don't want George Ford. We don't want Romain Intermac. We don't want Freddie Michalak. We don't want like a Jalibert. You know, Johnny Sexton gets into our side. Dan Bigger gets into our side. Finn Russell doesn't make the Springboks. You know, he probably does, but it's not. It doesn't suit our style of rugby. So, Colby at 10 is an exciting prospect, but he wouldn't suit what we do. And then just leave him on the wing there. Fullback maybe, but yeah, I think fullback is where you'll probably settle at later as soon as Billy retires. But we've also got Warwick Galant, eh? People are often forgetting about Warwick Galant, talking about the fact that we have to have Fassi at 15, we have to have Colby convert to 15. I think Warwick Galant should be back in the side quite soon if he gets back to full fitness. We forget just how good the rugby he was playing before he got injured. He was looking sensational last year. Also talk that he might be converted to a centre, maybe playing a bit of rugby at the Stormers at outside centre, which could be quite an interesting prospect as well. Louis says, I want to see fast backs and strong forwards. Tian says, all we need to do is win all our games left in the rugby championship. Something about the back against the wall mentality that still makes me think we'll do well. To be honest, I don't really care if we don't win the rugby championship, if I'm brutally honest. The biggest thing that we had to do this year was to beat the Lions. You know, at the end of the day, there's another rugby championship next year. At the end of the day, we've won it before. At the end of the day, it was always going to be an incredibly big ask to go to Australia, play 4 games over there, not have home crowds, stuff like that, and try and win the competition. So I'll obviously be upset if we don't win, but I said it before the tour began. I said it pretty much when the fixtures were announced. This was always going to be an incredibly big ask. But what I'd like to have seen is probably a little bit more rotation. But if we learn things about the squad, if we sort of develop as a squad, I'm happy. I'm happy with that. You know, and I think at the end of your tour, we can add to that. It's all about building. And as soon as I'm seeing progress, as long as I'm seeing progress and I'm seeing things going in the right direction, I'm seeing positive signs, I can get behind teams that don't necessarily win trophy because I think that you are building towards something. We lost against Wales in the USA and people were having a meltdown, and we won the World Cup a year later. You know, so it's all about a process. And I'm all, you know, it's not Arsenal. You know, we actually do have a project here that's worth backing. Jean Renel says, New Zealand commentator laugh at us thinking we're going to be easy bait for them. Yeah, look, underestimate us at your own peril. Matthew Dixon says, I bet you guys will be at 8K subs before the end of the month. Ooh, 8K is a big shot. That means we'd have to get... We've got 15 days to get another 1,000. I think we're closing in on 7,000. Yeah, I mean, we're 39 away from 7,000. I think 8,000 by the end of the month is probably a bit of a push, unless we have 2 really good streams in the next couple of weeks. But you never know. Look, URC, we will be live for about at least 6 or 7 games next weekend. Probably 2 on Friday night, probably 3 or 4 on Saturday, maybe even 5 if we can. So we are going to be very, very busy next weekend. So hopefully. Ethan Davies says, Colby doesn't need to play at 10. He's a good winger and plays that role well. GBR from Noran says, hope it's a good game. At least winning is important. But to think where we came from, it's actually amazing how fast we forget how to take a bloody nose. Precisely. Preach to the chorus. Marcus says, Galant, definitely. Colby at 10 is for a game like Namibia or Canada or USA. Galant is the best. Coulson at 10, Pollard inside center. Harsh and Damien Lindy. We have the next year for the United Rugby Championship. Agree. Ethan says, can't wait for Snayman to make a return. Got no idea how to spell the beast ends of a name. Well, you're pretty close. You literally have to take out the E and you're there, mate. Don't overcomplicate. Do not forget Dylan Lates. Yeah, he's a good player. I don't think he'll come back into the squad for whatever reason. But look, I mean, that's why I'd like to see more SAA. I really want to see a genuine SAA. Let's have an SAA tour next year. Let's have flipping Dylan Lates and the buggers running around against the French Barbarians or against Namibia or against Samoa or against Tonga or against Fiji. You know, let's get it going. We need more than just Springbok rugby. Quite apart from anything else, gives us more live watch longs to do. Prepare ourselves for defending the World Cup. I agree. Coulson at 10. Talked about anyone remember the Brent Russell experiment? Future Stormers backs 9 Yankees, 10 Sweel, 12 Willemse, 13 De Jong, 11 Emil van der Merwe. Well, he's actually leaving, so you need to add a new ring. You're forgetting Galant, mate. You're forgetting Galant. Whether he's going to go at 15 or at outside centre, but you could have Sergio Peterson. You could have Seabillis and hang on, you're going Galant at 14. No. Galant at fullback, back him at fullback. That's where he must play. He's too much of a playmaker to be at wing. I think he's wasted there. We want All Blacks to peak now. I'll be happy to lose a few games as we build for Rugby 23. Agreed. What would you have thought of putting Reinach on the bench instead of Yankees? Could it not give us a better change of pace? And if push comes to shove, he can play wing and bench a natural 10. I would like to see a natural 10 on the bench. I do enjoy the 6-2 split, but you know what it is? I think especially when you talk about a plan B, we don't get much of a plan B with a bomber squad. We just get a motherload of forwards who will just put us on the front foot. If you want to play a sort of bigger brand of rugby and stuff like that, then you need to have a fly off on the bench who's different, and a scrum off, and even an outside back who's a bit different. I'm always surprised at I always feel sorry for Herschel Yankees because I mean everybody keeps saying that he's Reinach is better, and I think he probably is, but also Herschel's just not started. He just hasn't had the time. But I mean, you think about the impact he made a couple of years ago when he came off the bench and scored a try almost every time. If we can get that Herschel back, then we're cooking. Why have we got 1 point if we scored 3 tries? Because it's I think it's scoring 3 more tries than your opponent as opposed to scoring 3 tries in total, doesn't it? We actually even went through this. I think that was it. Something along those lines. Gideon has had issues in the past. I'm not sure which one we're talking about. We're talking about Van der Merwe, then that's interesting. K Volta can be future. Ticket got for Munster versus Sharks. Yo, I'm so jealous. So Kane Coon, you have to see us photos. And we'll chuck them up on the channel. In fact, please do. Email me some photos and we'll chuck them up. And it'll be quite cool to see some of our followers and going and being in the stadium, stuff like that. I'm hoping that we can be in the SS stadiums by the end of the year. Fine, we lost Australia, but if we beat New Zealand 2 times, this will be epic. Agreed. Sorry, Gerson. With you. If they made rugby accessible for non-premium DSTV members, it would grow a lot in this country. Yeah, I agree. I did my entire thesis on that kind of concept. I heard Junior Pokamela is a Stormer. He was very impressed when Cheetahs were in the league. Great addition. Yeah, so they've also announced 2 more signings. They've actually signed RJ Smith and Monty Liebach today on a 3-year contract for each of them, which is good to see that they're signing those contracts. I think Monty Liebach's a very shrewd piece of business. I just don't understand why he can't settle. But I think that if we had Volta with the injuries and stuff like that whether he'll be able to come back, it's very useful to have Monty Liebach who can cover fullback, can cover 10. He's a very nice player. RJ Smith's been pretty solid for the Griquas over the last year, so I think it's a nice addition to that second row. South Africa Air will be sponsored by South Airways, SAA times 2. Yeah, listen, I wouldn't surprise me, even if we don't have the money to do that. Ed van der Merwe not Stormers anymore. Also, Galant should be at 15. So he's going 10 Swiel, 12 Willemse, 13 De Jong, Sinatra, Peterson, Galant. Yeah, I think that's probably closer to it. I agree that we lost that game against Oz last weekend, but it confused me that Craig Cooper had around 2 minutes to take the pick when the ref indicated he's taking the kick. Yeah, I saw a little thing about it. I didn't really look too deep into that. Cape Volta future Springbok. Yeah, I think he'll get there eventually, but he needs to play a lot more games. He's like 19 still, isn't he? Don't back and consider Bolters like late. I hope Tresman would make it for Box versus New Zealand. I hope so as well. Edwin was never at the Stormers. And he technically was. I think he did play Super Rugby a lot last year. So he technically did play for the Stormers and play Super Rugby as well. He was a Stormers. But he's now a Lion. He's a Lou. Well, technically, he will play for the Stormers next weekend. He is still a Stormers player for the next month or two. No offense to Swiel, he carried us well this season, but we need a better 10. Well, you've got Monty Liebach now. Can't wait for the Sharks to floor Munster. Eesh, big calls. As rugby becomes more of a 23-man game, can't we get the entire 23 on the field to sing the anthem? Weird how only starting 15 still does it alone. Interesting idea, actually. I quite like that concept. Why do I feel like we're going to play attractive rugby against New Zealand? I mean, you never know. Raymond Rule and Cornel Hendricks for SA centres. See, now that's what I'm talking about. If you did an SA invitation, I'd like to see that. I think Raymond Rule could be an interesting player, actually. If you've been watching him in the top 14, he's playing flipping very, very nice rugby and sorted out those defensive fragilities, which were the issues with him. I think Cornel Hendricks, unfortunately, is probably a bit too old, but I really do like him. He just makes rugby look so easy, doesn't it? When can Apiwa Dianti come back? In theory, only in 2 years' time. 2023 is when his ban does run out, but if they can appeal his ban and reduce it to 2 years, he could be available flipping tomorrow. Now that's someone I want back in rugby. And let's be honest, even if you think that he overdosed on steroids, which he didn't, but even if you really don't like him and you don't like what he did, we can all agree that he was a sensational rugby player. I just, for the rugby fan in me, just wants to see him back on the field and back on the field for the Lions. We need somebody like that. But he was just another person that made rugby just look so easy. It was easy for him. That was supposed to be his World Cup, It was supposed to be him World Cup. Oh, for SAA. Yeah, I'm all for that. Yeah, we can have those 2 centers in the SAA. RJ Smith already has a handful of Stormers caps for the Rainbow Cup. He's decent players, RJ Smith. Got a bit of a head on him, but I suppose you generally do. The scrum was a penalty for us on 80-minute because they scrummed in instead of forwards. Katana says when Hougaard was still playing, he would play wing with Habana or Combrink, and we would have 2 fly replacements or an extra utility. If you're still there, we could accommodate a 6-2 with a 10. It's a risky thing to go that, isn't it? It's just a bit risky. Obviously, Dianti was my favorite player back then, but I can't get past cheating. I think I'm not going to condone what he did, but I don't think it was anything to do with getting a performance advantage. I think it was just him desperately trying to get back for the World Cup. So I don't think he did it knowingly. I think that he was probably advised pretty poorly by people around him who pretty much said, "Listen, we can help you try and get ready for the World Cup," and he was so desperate to play it. I don't. I mean, he was World Player of the year before in his debut season, 2 years after playing varsity rugby. It's not like he needed to go and stick a whole bunch of stuff into him to make him a better player. He was one of the best players in the world anyway. I think it was 100% to try and get back from the injury. Lions have Strowley. That's the issue. Yeah, don't go there. Interesting point with the 23 for the anthems. All 23 have to face the haka, and all 23 represent their team on the day. Yeah, I think we can start a bit of a campaign for that. I think it's a very good idea actually. Should shift Daimani to the left wing at Stormers. I'm interested to see what happens with Daimani. We can take Freeleroo out on 15 and put it in Leighton fullback. I don't think we will. I think Warwick Galant is the next fullback. I think lots of people are going after Fassi. I think Fassi will start on the wing and then shift into fullback. But I think the way that Warwick Galant was playing last season before his injury, I think that he would be my fullback. If I had to replace Villy tomorrow and everyone was fit, I'd be going Warwick Galant. I think he's a tremendous rugby player. I was so pissed off that the Lions never went in for him when he left the Bulls because he's just brilliant. Ethan Davis said, I can't express how happy I felt at the 09 World Cup when Colby Stead failed to get the winning try. Made him look silly. Definitely to get a poster of that. Yeah, look, I can remember it slightly. I was on the floor of the Rat and Parrot in Grahamstown with brandy all over me. Good times. Good times. Hard grinding tomorrow. Off to bed. Thanks for the stream, TVP. Good night, Contender. Always a pleasure. Eddie Fisher, Jordan Henderson for the incumbent Lions 10. Yeah, those two will be a nice competition. Burhart says he would go Kitsoft 1, Marks 2, Cock 3, Etzebeth 4, Arceus Neyman 5, Kutsia 6, PSF 7, Dwayne 8, Faf 10, Pollard, Pimpy, Lindy, and Corsi Colby. Look, I mean, I think it's harsh dropping Siak Lisi after this Lions series he had. Hopefully everyone can get vaccinated so we can fill stadiums up. Yeah, please. Fassi and Kalant in the box sounds tasty. I mean, those two pushing each other would be a dream, wouldn't it? An absolute dream. This is what I'm saying. And I mean, Warwick Kalant, for all that he's been around the block, he is what, 25, 26. He's got years. He's got years as Warwick Kalant. I just think he's such a he's one of those players. He makes rugby look so much fun when he's playing well. He's just a lovely player to watch. So hopefully he can get back to his best. In the URC. Brody Marie says would like to see Chesney play a bit more at scrummy. Could allow for two special on the bench. No utility player. Yeah, it's an interesting idea, isn't it? Even Raylock, for example, is someone who can, if he needs to, shift to the wing in terms of having the pace to do that. The other alternative, I suppose, you got Kwaka Smith who can cover wing if he has to. He actually spoke about that in the press conference, which will be coming out tomorrow. But yeah, so I think we're gonna pretty much call it there. We've almost been going for an hour, but yeah, so the Stormers have signed this week Willie Engelbrecht, Junior Pocamella, Stefan Angara, and then RJ Smith and Monty Liebach. So pretty decent signings. They haven't brought anybody back from overseas, much like the Lions. And I wouldn't say a blockbuster like the Stormers and the Bulls have. But so I think there definitely seems to be a very big difference between what the Stormers can bring to their unit compared to what the Bulls and the Sharks can, which is I suppose probably going to reflect in the URC performances. I'm very interested to see how the URC is going to go. Because I think that the Bulls, the Sharks, I think people are freaking out a little about the Sharks, but they've got the quality, especially when their box come back. Whether they've got the coaching staff, who knows? But we will be doing that next weekend, which is going to be interesting. United is in there. Colby at 9 around the fringe, stepping solid. The 6-2 split only works when you have a utility back like Frans Steyn. He can cover most backline position, but is he match fit? I don't really think so. I think Jan Kursen sorts that out. Stephen, who is your sponsor now? We're currently between sponsors. We are having a conversation at the moment. Nothing signed, nothing sorted. So we're trying to see if we can try and find something for the URC, but we don't currently have a sponsor, unfortunately. Which is why, yeah. So we obviously had Manscaped for a month, and we were talking about the month stuff like that. Whether we'll go back with them and stuff like that, who knows? But we are currently in between sponsors. Let's talk Stormers timings. Will they finally have Grunch to go with pace? Well, I think RJ Smith's a good signing. He basically replaces JD Schickerling, so that's decent. Billy Engelbrecht replaces Peter Steff the Toy, so that's decent. Stefan Angara is a scrum off, and you guys need a scrum off, so I think that's decent. I think Warwick Galant coming back after 9 months is basically like a new signing. I think Junior Pocamella, you've lost Jack Katia and you've lost Peter Steff the Toy, and you brought those two players in. So I think that wouldn't say match quality, but two very good players have come in. I think Stormers have got a good side. I do wonder about the coaching staff, not necessarily about John Dobson, because shame, I think he's such a nice guy. You just want him to succeed, but I'm not convinced that he's got the setup around him to do the business. Yeah, without a box in the squad, I think Matthew's talking about the Sharks there. Cheers for the stream and good to have a lucky one. Thank you, everybody. When is Jane Henderson coming back? I'm not sure. There's been no sort of deadline given on that. We'll try and find something out. Thanks for the show, bro. Good one. Hussen 10, Pollard 12. Suffers with who knows why not without. Yeah, look, hey, you never know. Hussen 10, Pollard on the bench. Yeah, you never know. Yeah, please don't mention Manchester United. I'm still grieving after last night. It was just a horrible night. But yeah, people. Givan from Orange, last one says, what's more attractive than the slow poison SC teams can meet out as well? All the Bulls, just the pure hopelessness on the opposition's faces when the damn wall starts to crack. 100%. But people will be back tomorrow night at 8 o'clock. We've got myself, the Conjures on the stream. So bring your Scrum questions to our Scrum specialist. We're also going to have a new face in the channel, so welcome him in tomorrow. And yeah, then we'll be live immediately after for the Premier League show with Coelho and Arsenal fans. We're going to have a good laugh at him. I'm really, really excited to have more faces on the channel, which will be really, really cool. But yeah, apart from that, people have a fantastic evening. I'll see you guys all tomorrow on the stream. Smash like on the video. Check out our channel tomorrow. We're going to have Quacker Smith's press conference coming out. Gary Ringrose. Trying to remember who else we had. We had Farrell from Munster. We had so all those press conferences will be coming out tomorrow as well. So some of the URC build up, and then we'll obviously have our preview out for this weekend for both the All Blacks game and the Australia game, as well as obviously for this game against the Australia. Keep well. Thank you very much. Chat to you guys tomorrow.